And I'm very proud of you guys for holding down the fort in the New York area, New York, New Jersey. We know what that comes with, especially when we defend our brothers and sisters in Palestine. So my background is that initially I was born in Philadelphia. My early teenage years were pretty tough, and I'm open with this because I think it's beneficial. I really took the divorce of my parents hard. And my parents were like the first generation that was getting divorced in this country, so they didn't know how to do it, you know what I'm saying? And it really had a big impact on me. So I found myself for a little while, I was on the streets in Philadelphia. But alhamdulillah, because of my parents, they also weren't necessarily bad parents. They had some religion. I was not Muslim at that time. My family was pretty religious. So I had some idea of right and wrong. So at a certain point, like about, in that 16, 17-year range, I knew that what was out there was not for me. Like I had a different orientation, different lifestyle. But I didn't leave the so-called street without being impacted. So I had to do a lot of work on myself. I got caught up. And I rediscovered the religion. So I spent my later teens really looking for God, and then I ended up, the elders in the community, because I was a practicing Catholic, they had told me, you're always here in the church, why don't you think about becoming a priest? So I left the East Coast, and I went to the Midwest to study to be a priest for about 2.5 years. But, the East Coast is no stranger to Islam, so always in the back of my head, it was, is this Muslim thing the right thing or not? And that's what pushed me to investigate more in my religion. But the brothers that were doing da'wah, they were doing good work because they sowed enough doubts in my mind about who Jesus was that it forced me to rethink the whole thing. And it was a different reality back then when people were doing da'wah in that regard. They were out there. So that caused me to eventually leave to study to be a priest, and I became a Muslim. And I had studied other religions and so on and so forth, and that's a long story, but just giving you a background. But I continued my education out there in the Midwest, in Cleveland, Ohio specifically. And one of the reasons I stayed over there was because at that time, the Muslim community was pretty established. And I decided to be part of that community. And I just kept coming back and forth between here. So I have a background in religious studies and philosophy and sociology. And then eventually, with all the confusion, and this is very important when we start talking about the culture in the masjid, with all the confusion as a new Muslim, this group and that group, eventually that forced me to want to study Islam. That was the only way I was going to stay in Islam. It had to be on clear knowledge. There was too many ideas, too much bickering, a lot of disorientation. And eventually, it got more and more, I started at a small pace, it got more and more intense, especially when I was in the Salah line, and I couldn't understand the Quran, but I could feel the Quran. I said, this is not working for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm having issues with understanding Islam, and I'm also having issues with connecting. So that caused me to go to Michigan. I took a scholarship that was being offered to study Arabic, and then eventually I went to Egypt. And then I came back after being in Egypt for about 5 years, studying with the ulama of Al-Azhar. The only reason I came back was because my daughter almost died over there. So I became Egyptian, and I was part of the hospital system, and I learned really fast that if you don't have enough money, you're not going to make it work. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of us know that reality. And when I came back, alhamdulillah, I came back in the best of times. The economy crashed. It's 2007, 2008. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to do something here. So I went back to school, and I started attempting to work on a master's degree while my bank account was bankrupt, and there was a scarcity of jobs. But I stayed with it. And I got up to a certain point, And then I went through some issues that caused me to have to leave it, and eventually I went to go be a social worker, and I was trained in that. So after thousands and thousands of dollars was spent on books and so on and so forth, and I still have them in storage up to this day, I realized the Muslim community doesn't need someone that just has their heads in books. It's not going to work. We need someone that has some knowledge and has the ability to deal with the crisis situations of the people, whether it's teenage issues or marriage. And so the knowledge has its place, but that practical side was there. And then also I got training in social work and mental health. And I've been on that program trying to figure out how do you deal with knowledge, and how do you organize the community, and how do you deal with mental health, and how do you help the families, how do you deal with the youth. That has been my mission for the last about 10 years or so, and it's been a struggle. So that's basically where I'm at, and that's the angle that I come from. I was an imam at NHIC for about a year, and that was not an easy walk, because as it has to be said. I always say it. It has to be said. We have our youth that's struggling, but we have a cultural reality also that blocks us from being able to deal with the youth, because our older generation is struggling too with regard to who they are. So we have that clash. So I stayed a year there, and then I ended up going to PA, and I was director of the masjid over there in community building with the Turkish community, another community that's struggling with their own issues. So now I'm the vice principal of Manara Islamic Academy, and we have almost about 300 students. And if you need a place to move, I advise you go to the Lehigh Valley area, but don't leave Bayonne Masjid without support. But it's a growing community. It's a growing community, up and coming. Sheikh Shanawi always paints it as the new Dallas, but it's a reality. So my thing is this, and I'll cut it short. On the whole of the East Coast, we need a vision. We need a vision. We see some of the Aqidah fights that are being pushed now, and we can't afford to go through what we went through in the 90s. We need a vision, because let me tell you people, you are extremely important. Important to Allah, but you're important. What happens on the East Coast shapes the rest of the country. So the moves that you make here impact the rest of the country in terms of understanding and practicing Islam. Serious work. Right? And so, as far as the community is concerned, family is the crux of the issue, and that's what we want to get into this. And so let's look at the story of Yusuf. Alhamdulillah, I heard that I heard there was a study of Surah Yusuf here. That was pretty. How long did that take? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So we have some sort of Quranic background. Firstly, as a principle, Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Ya Rabbana zidna ilma wa taqwa wa thabbat aqdamana amma ba'd. So, stories in the Quran, people. Some of the ulama, they say the Quran consists of Tawheed and Qasas and Ahkam. That's a standard concept. It's just to facilitate. But in the time of Imam Shafi'i, people, the qasas, or the stories of the Quran, used to be the sources for extracting principles and rulings and so on and so forth. As Islamic education became a little more organized, and they tried to simplify, they tried to say these ayat deal with ahkam, these ayat deal with aqidah. That's an academic division. It's important, but it's an academic division. So from the stories of the Quran is another entry point, another way to deal with knowledge. The Quran is amazing in that angle, that it speaks to us from different ways. It doesn't speak in one way. And that's the first lesson that we have to realize, especially with our children and with each other. Everybody doesn't get it the same way. Some people get it through the life lesson. Some people get it if you give them the principle. Some people get it with a general idea. Some people get it with a detailed study. We have to be open to that. And that's, in the reality of education today, that's where it's at. Diversifying the education and meeting people's needs. So I was told that I'm a okay reader, so I'm going to play with that idea. How much time do we have? Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit, and I want you to reflect and think, and we're going to extract some ideas, right? So where this version of the story of Yusuf begins is talking about Yaqub himself, alayhi salatu wasalam, the Prophet Yaqub, and his sons. This section is entitled A Wonderful Dream and a Wicked Plot. Jacob was blessed with 12 sons. Joseph and Benjamin were the two youngest, and of the two, Joseph was older. The other 10 had a different mother, and were much older than Joseph and Benjamin. Jacob loved all his sons. Yaqub, he loved all his sons. But most especially, he loved Yusuf, he loved Joseph. Joseph was handsome, and his good looks were a test from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. A test for all those who saw him, and a test for Yusuf himself. Though very young, Joseph was committed to his prayers to Allah. And the very sight of him gladdened his father's heart. When Yaqub saw Yusuf's face, his face lit up with joy. When he saw his face, he lit up with joy. And all the others saw that this was the reality. All the other children saw that this was the reality. How his father was experiencing the sight of Yusuf. They saw that Yaqub's heart went out to Yusuf. Benjamin too loved Yusuf. His heart was clear and innocent. And they were the closest of friends, Benjamin and Yusuf. How Benjamin would miss Yusuf if ever Yusuf went away. How Yaqub would miss him if ever the dearest of his sons was not there. Not so the 10 older brothers. They would not miss Yusuf. They were jealous of him. They said, "Are we not stronger? Do we not work harder? Why then is there such a light in our father's face when he sees Yusuf?" But Yaqub knew them in a way that they did not know themselves. Yaqub knew of something in their hearts that they did not know of themselves. These brothers did not ask, which of us best remembers Allah? Their hearts were not clear and not innocent. They had a grudge against Yusuf. I want to stop there because of the time. So the first thing that's important, because we live in a time of divorced people. What's one of the first things that's notable about this family? Anybody brief? We have to be brief. Anybody, but I want you to stay awake. Yes, they had two different mothers. Anybody that has to get remarried again, and this is good for even the young people, you know that this becomes one of the primary issues. What to do with the stepchildren, and how do you feel about them? What types of expectations of the mother is there? Or if, look, if we can have LGBT, then we know that people have polygamy. We know that some people are in polygamous relationships. So the issue comes up about how do you deal with the differences among the children. Here the story, it shows us that the Yaqub was aware of that reality. A lot of times we're not aware of that reality because we're busy, with life and with wifey and so on and so forth, and we're not paying attention to what's going on between the children. We're not paying attention to that reality. Here, one of the things that comes up is that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, it's very clear that Yaqub loved him. But one of the things that we have to learn from this lesson is that love showed, and what did it do? We can't blame Yaqub. Yaqub is a prophet, but we look at the children. What did that love of Yaqub do in the children? Anybody? It created envy, or they responded like that? So if they responded like that, there was some disconnect between them and their father. Now the thing about this is what I always see. When we see the children running around in the masjid and they have issues, what's the gossip of the, how do people deal with that? What do they say about the parents? Yes, exactly. Say it again. So we break the myth that they're what? Yeah, they're not raised right. Would we dare say that about Yaqub? Yaqub had children that plotted to kill one of his own children. He had children. He's a prophet. Alayhi salatu wasalam. He had children that plotted to kill one of their brothers. Does that mean that parents, because they have issues with their children, are automatically to be labeled as bad parents? Some children, they go their route. Even if you give them the education, you do whatever that you want to try to benefit them within the boundaries, and they go their route. So the first thing, when we talk about the issue of parenting, we as a community have to be very careful at that point. Because we start labeling, and we as a community, we like family. So we have gossip. You know what I'm saying? The telephone, the WhatsApp, the this, the that. And then some of us, it's not just me and wifey. Some of us, half of the village is with us. Right? So what we say about one of the cousins, it goes to the whole system. It goes to the whole system. We have to be careful. Because we don't know what that parent is actually going through. And on the other side, here the children, they getting feelings. But the difference between them and the story, at least as it appears, right? And Yusuf used to talk to Yaqub. Yusuf went and told Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam what his dream was. Right? But when you look at the story and you see the brothers, they're not communicating, right, with the parent about what they're feeling. And the issue that we have as a community that we have to overcome is that the lifestyle and the culture and the traditions overseas, and some of us are on the older side of things, it was before, uskut ya walad, be quiet. That was the approach, right? So you stay in the room, but you can't speak, you can't have an opinion, right? So then the problem that it comes up in there, okay, so who do the children confide in? Where do they get their guidance from? Somebody tell me, I'm trying to figure this out. Because if they can't get it from the father, where are they getting it from? How about if they don't confide in the mom? If they confide in the mom, we're in a better position at least. But mom may not tell Papa or Baba everything that goes on. She keeps the secrets. But if they don't confide in, let's keep it to the men. Let's keep it to the men because we're having a challenge with boys. You see, immediately we go to the mom, and immediately what do we say? We have to, the sisters, we're going to have a space for them. It's not an attack on you, but we're concerned with the sisters. So we did as an ummah a good job of raising the status of the girls, so they're ready. They're ready. They're ready with their education. They're ready to get married. But the boys, we left them to the side. So the boys, when they go home, sometimes they fight you to go to the masjid. So they're playing the video games. Right? And the maturity level drops. But the point of the story, firstly, the communication piece. It's not comfortable. One time in the masjid that I was in, before all this, the LGBT stuff got to the level that it's at now. So I was telling one of the fathers, said, you have to talk to your son, bro. Who do you want to do it? You don't want the Mulana to do it? If the Mulana comes and does it, then you're going to kick him out. I was very open with him. But, you have to talk to your son, especially about life. about what he's experiencing biologically. When he saw Maryam, it was no issue. Maryam was like his friend, his best buddy. Then when he sees Maryam, he's like, whoa, Maryam is looking hot. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, but I'm saying that if you don't guide the child on how to deal with that, somebody else is going to guide the child on how to deal with that. And that's where we begin to lose it. So the first thing is that communication piece. But guess what? We have an opposite thing too. I don't know if there's any brothers that are willing to put themselves on the line. But how many of you are open to talk to your children, but your children are not open to talk to you? My son is like that. My son is like that. Anybody with me in the struggle? I'm open, but my son is not open. So the thing about that is that, okay, he may not be open with me, but he may be open with his uncle. He may be open with Brother Wahid. He may be open. You see what I'm saying? And that becomes the issue of the environment. Now, what stopped the brothers of Yusuf from killing Yusuf? Aside from the qadr of Allah. Yeah, there was a brother in the mix. Like, hold on a second. They were not totally bad. You see what I'm saying? They were a little misguided. But one of the things that it said here, that it was mentioning is that their hearts were not clear and not innocent, whereas the heart of Yusuf was. What's the difference in this case if their hearts were not clear in the heart of Yusuf? Okay, think about how we deal with religion. What's the difference between having khushu' in the salah and not having khushu' in the salah? So what's the purpose of focus? To align with what? So you have connectivity, no disruption in the service type of thing. Align with what? I get what you're saying, but we have children. You would be a little more. It's your teaching moment. With what you're thinking? Okay, who can help him with that piece? He has 50% of it, but there's a 50% that's missing. What are we aligning with people? Yes, we're aligning with Allah. Because if not, then we're just like with the New Age and Fortune 500 leadership literature, Ask the Universe type stuff. No, we add I'm not putting you on the spot, but we have to be clear with that, right? So we're aligning with Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So there's a side of it that I'm being conscious. But before I get to that point, what am I focusing? I'm focusing on movements. They could be exercise movements, yoga movements. It's not salah until it has that other dimension, the intention. We're aligning with Allah, or else it's just what? Movement. And what's the first thing that happens with our children? They fall in line with the movement. But are their hearts aligned? What we get from that story, now I want to really focus on this. Because even for ourselves, even when we study Aqidah, this is part of the dilemma that we have with Aqidah studies. We're focused on ideas. And ibadah, we're focused with motion. But the maqsid, the aim, when you look at Riyadh al-Salihin, the first part of Riyadh al-Salihin is talking about the heart. It's talking about the heart. Make it your intention, making tawbah to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, fear of Allah, dependence on Allah. All that stuff comes in the heart. That's the part that we have to focus when we're teaching our children. See what I'm saying? It's not enough to teach them the routine. We have to teach them to be aware of what's going on in their hearts. Right? That's extremely important. So I think, anybody have any we can pause here and pick up again. Anybody have any comments, reflections? What does the generosity piece mean? Do we need to support parents more? Our parents are under a lot of pressure. Parents are under a lot of pressure, especially rent is 2,500, houses are 1 million. You know, parents are under a lot of pressure, and some parents they have the sabr of ayub because their children are cursing them out, hitting them, abusing them, and it gets sometimes gets worse with the older ones because the older parents, sometimes the youth are waiting for them to die to take the inheritance. I'm being really honest. So we need to support our parents. That's why I was saying the label is the first thing that has to go. Don't just automatically label. You don't know what the person is going through. Anybody else want to build on that or have another comment before we wrap up a little bit? Thoughts? Something, feelings? It's not easy. There's no formula for it except practicing it. It's not easy. And sometimes the thing about it is not giving up. I'll show you wallahi. Like if I show you my text, I can show you dates and times. My son, he got married, so I'm like, Assalamu alaikum, how you doing? What's going on? Give me the update. Assalamu alaikum, how you doing? Assalamu alaikum, how you doing? No alaikum salam. But the moment he runs into a jam, Baba, you know what I'm saying? So the thing about it is not giving up. But really in reality, and we have to really try this, which is not easy. It begins with the husband and wife modeling that. So the children, they see it at a young age. And including them, even making shorter with them. I know some parents don't like that. Because why? It kind of takes a little bit away from the authority when you're making shorter with the little one. You know what I'm saying? The little one is like, bro, let's do it this way. Hold on, who are you? Stay in your place for a little bit, But still, we need to. You see what I'm saying? Involve them in that process. It's a Quranic concept. Shawarahum fil amr. You're teaching them. You're modeling that and you're teaching them. The other issue, there's the other dimension. Asking Allah to help us. Asking Allah to help us. We can read all the psychology stuff. We can, some people do that, but we miss the dimension, the other dimension is asking Allah. Ya muqallib al-qulub. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala knows how the hearts are constantly changing. Anything else, people?
I would suggest reading Surah Al-Baqarah every day in a home. This would, inshallah, give barakah for your children, your health, your money. And hopefully, inshallah, Allah will fix your children. And of course, the shaitan will go like for 3 days if you read Al-Baqarah. In a home every day. It is just.
What about you? You?
It's me.
Yeah. Since you're the father that brought the babies and yeah.
Inshallah, you mentioned something very important: communication. Communication, it starts from the early ages until but it's if you keep that communication and something goes wrong later on, like between especially the parent and the kids, or and we have the example beside Yusuf, the example of Nuh alayhi salam, that his son, disobey his order. He said, I'm going to go to top of the mountain.
Layla go.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Nuh called Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, says, Innahu min ahli. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, like, Innahu laysa min ahli, innahu amal ghayru salih. Yes, so, the job is you do the communication and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If anything goes wrong,
There's a point that I want to add on to this. You see, the communication was there. Yaqubi attempted to deal with his children, but they felt hurt. They felt wronged. You see what I'm saying? And that stayed and it built up. And a lot of us are not being honest if we don't feel that. How are we going to parent? And this is hard because I'm going to hit people. Some people are not going to like it. But how many of us don't talk to our brother? I don't want any raising hands. But how many of us don't talk to our brothers or our sisters or our uncles because of things that happen? And sometimes they're in the same city. Don't worry, I won't look at anybody so anybody won't feel wrong. But they're in the same city. And so the model that we're showing our children is inqita' silat al-rahm. We're breaking the family tie. And sometimes that stuff is over the most. It's important. Sometimes it's important stuff. I didn't get my share of the inheritance, or you didn't respect me at this point, or you didn't take my decision, whatever it is. But we're modeling for the children the ease to, break the relationship. Is it difficult? Very difficult. Very difficult. And I'm not telling you something that's not difficult. When I became Muslim, my mom cut me off. She cut me off. And part of my family was like that for a while. And I carried that with me. The Muslim community became my family. With all these problems, all these issues, my family became a big family with a whole bunch of good and a whole bunch of struggles. But no matter what, I had to even speak to my mom in a way that I would have wanted to speak. Why? Because she wasn't even looking for my children. She was not looking for my children. So she looked for my sister's daughter. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. She even helped raise my sister's daughter. But she left my children on the side completely. But then it's like something clicked with her. Because now she has her own relationship with them. See what I'm saying? Her own relationship with them. But we have to get more serious with that. You know what I'm saying? With that aim of sulh. And the sulh part, people, is not just arbitration in a political sense. Sulh really means to better the conditions. Don't leave them as they were. Don't try, better the condition. And that's work. But who gets the reward for that at the end? For the work. You get the reward with Allah, because after Tawheed, one of the most important things is Silat Rahim. But the children need to see that. And let me just push and leave with this last example. One of the brothers that I know pretty close, he gave me a really good, mashallah, example. He was good, work-wise, house-wise, family-wise. He was moving. But with his parents, he wasn't good. So he assessed everything, says, you know what? And this is why the example is relevant to us. And I'll say it in a minute. He said, you know what? I'm going to come back to the East Coast. He was in the South. Because my parents, they're getting older. And this is where the point is relative. And I want my children to see me struggle for my parents, because I want them to be there for me. See what I'm saying? He wanted to be that example, not just telling them what to do, but he wanted them to see the sacrifice that's made. And that's important, because a lot of our elderly people, after they sacrifice for their kids go and they leave them by themselves. That's happening right now. And that's what we need to focus on, to turn that around. And it comes with struggle. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين.